To see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, with problems like the housing markets, unemployment, and stagnant consumer spending, the editor-in-chief of U.S. News and World Report wrote a troubling editorial today. Mort Zuckerman saying, in part, quote, "We are in what a number of economists are referring to as the new normal. This is a much slower growing economy that is causing many Americans to distance themselves from the long-held assumption that their children will have it better than they." Eric Bolling is the anchor of Money Rocks on the Fox Business Network. Christopher Hahn is with the Long Island Business News. And Norman Oberlander is the CEO of Zip Productions. Gentlemen, welcome to you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, Norman, I want to start with you. Is the American dream dead? Is it dying?
It's not being watered. That's for sure. It's not growing. I think the way I was brought up and the values of which I got into the working for other people to my own business has changed completely. I think the entitlements, people just figure it's owed to them. I remember I wanted to do what I wanted to do for a certain reason, and that reason was a little bit of, I guess, benefit. Okay, I remember working for somebody else, making, that was about maybe $80,000, $70,000, which was considerable income back in those days. And I said to myself, you know, I can make, if I'm making him 70, he's got to be making, I'm making for him maybe 200. Why can't I do that for myself? And I think that that attitude of wanting to do and achieving, which is beautifully American, okay, is what we're losing now. So I believed in America. I believed that I could do it. America gave me the opportunity to do it. And I went ahead and I fell and I picked myself up. I dusted myself off.
No one bailed you out?
No
bailout for Norm.
No bailout for Norm.
Well, Chris, let me ask you, I mean,
Sure.
are we losing that America? I mean, the one that Norm grew up in and was able to achieve in?
I think that, you know, things have changed dramatically in the last 2 years, but I think that, you know, we've been through crises before in America, and I'm very optimistic that we will come to a point where that American dream will be realized by the next generation. I have kids, Norm has kids, we all have kids, and we want the best for our children, and I think right now we're at a point where the economy is a little bit stagnant. Remember, the baby boomers are going to retire more and more every year. There'll be more and more opportunities opening up for the next generations to come in and fill the leadership roles that they have had, and I think that you're going to see, this cannot last forever. It never does. And this too will pass. I think we've had to come to a realization. The market had to correct itself. It had been expanding at a rate that was unprecedented, and I think it's made the adjustments, and it will continue to adjust. But I think if we're patient, I think we'll start to see it turn around. I believe that even by the end of this year, we'll start to see some significant changes in what's going on.
And it's not just going to be the government. I mean, Eric, we're talking about personal responsibility over debt as well. I mean, we look at the debt-to-income ratio. It averages about 122%, being Americans are in way over their heads. We got to cut back on our own.
Shannon, the question was, is the American dream dead? No, it's not dead. It's alive and kicking. The problem is there are a lot of threats to the American dream. Well, one is crime and corruption, a huge threat to American dream. It's like additional taxes. You pay your tax money and then you have politicians stealing it. That's a threat. But one of the biggest, if not the biggest threat to the American dream is what you just said, that 122% of households are in debt to 122% over their income. That's a problem. And then you turn it into a nationally, here it is, $13.3 trillion in debt. That's unsustainable and growing. So every year you add another $1.5 trillion onto your debt. Eventually it's got to come home to roost in the form of either higher prices for everything or higher taxes for everybody.
Well, Norm, and Chris sounded pretty optimistic. Do you feel like your kids are going to have the same opportunities, your grandkids?
I certainly hope they do. My kids work very hard. They both went into professions that they love. One is a doctor, and he's helping people. The other one is a teacher, and she's instructing people, and she's into the sciences also. They work very hard. They have been instilled with those values, but that comes from us, the parents. I think those values, those ideologies are being questioned. And I think that with all of the entitlements that the government wants to give us, for whatever power grabbing or elitism or whatever, is changing a lot of the younger people's attitudes. Look, they don't even care about how they eat or what they feel like with the gross obesity. Now, they go like my son is a doctor, they go into the hospital, fix me. Give me a pill, do something. And of course, I don't want to pay for it. It's
Fix me and
entitled.
make it free.
Yes, exactly.
Chris, are we creating this underclass of people who believe they're entitled?
I think that, one person's entitlement is another person's job, another person's career. I mean, you talk about your kids being teachers and doctors. Teachers and doctors benefit from generous government subsidies throughout their educational process and funding their actual employment. And without the government there right now to kind of bolster up those industries, we wouldn't have the successful teachers. I mean, here where we're from on Long Island, the school districts are tremendously funded, and they are spectacularly run.
And that's the third threat to the American dream: the corruption, crime, yes; the debt, yes; also the entitlement transfer of wealth from haves to have-nots. It's unsustainable. Look what's going on. The unemployment rate is 9.5%. It's elevated. It's stayed elevated, even though we have $1 trillion in stimulus. And then, here's how it works. The amount of time you stay on unemployment now has exploded. Do you know why? Because you can collect unemployment for a lot longer.
2 points, Eric.
Right,
One, crime and corruption. There's
weeks.
Always been crime and corruption in government. We obviously have to root it out.
Doesn't make it right,
I think
Chris.
absolutely,
Doesn't make it right.
But to say it's a threat to the American dream, there was more crime and corruption in the 1940s than there is today.
I don't think so.
Now, second,
I don't think so.
when we talk about, we're talking about Mort Zuckerman's article, and one of the things he said in that article that was very clear is that investment in education is absolutely vital right now. And
no one disagrees with that.
Well, I mean, we talk about the entitlement
But
society.
do we need to pass $26 billion in additional spending so that teachers are okay?
New York State had a $9 billion.
Meanwhile, $400 billion of unspent stimulus money sits in Treasury somewhere. Use that money.
That money was funded. It was funded by cutting food stamps and finding a loophole that corporations were shipping their profits overseas. New York State had a $9 billion hole in its budget this year. This stimulus is going to close $1 billion of that. There are states around the country that have tremendous problems. We need to educate our children, keep cops, firefighters, and nurses employed, and that's what that money's going to go
is such a populist thing to say.
Part of the problem that many economists will agree on with the states is the fact that they're being given unfunded mandates from the feds. So what do we do with the new things coming out of Washington inside the Beltway, where they love to cook up ways to spend money?
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, there are a lot of unfunded mandates from the feds to the states, and from the states to localities, which drives our property taxes up, which is the most regressive of all taxes, and needs to be addressed at the local and state level. But yes, the federal government needs to stop putting unfunded mandates on the states, and the states need to stop doing it to localities.
But you're suggesting that we continue to pass multi-billion-dollar spending bills to pay for some of the programs, the entitlement programs, the union payoffs, the teachers' union payoffs, and on and on and on. Meanwhile, we have all this money that hasn't been spent yet.
What about just the average guy, the average woman, the average person who's here? What are we saying to them with all these entitlements? What are we saying about good, hard work? Take that seed, bend over, put it in.
You're both talking about two different entitlements. You're talking about welfare. You're talking about paying teachers unions.
No, I'm not talking about welfare.
I don't think that you would argue that we should not pay teachers.
I'm talking about the psychology of people. Do I have to grow my own food, or is it him or you got to give it to me?
I think that
that's the attitude, and
the vast majority of Americans who are out of work today would rather have a job than a government handout. I believe that, and I believe that.
You can't argue with the fact that since unemployment benefits have been extended, the duration on unemployment is also extended. So if you allow more time on unemployment, people will take it.
I have a small business, okay? And I sometimes will put an ad out, which I haven't done in a while, for help to make my business grow. Now, from what I'm hearing, and from my own experience, people come in, they go, yeah, I'll work for you, but it has to be off the books, okay? Because they're collecting their check, and then they want this underground economy where they're making money without paying taxes. And I see more and more of that, and I see a lot of my friends who also are small business owners telling me the same thing. They cannot get people to work if they go on the books.
All right. Well, we all agree that the American dream is still out there, and hopefully will regain its footing.
America's just a little bit more awake today than it has been in the past.
It certainly is. Very awake. Norm, Chris, and Eric, great to see you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, 14 people.